Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to the Doctor Who show spin-off, The List Makers, episode 44, top 5 stories that should have been a regeneration story for that Doctor. We got 2 different versions of almost the same topic on this one, submitted by 2 different listeners, Peter Kavanagh and Blaine Coughlin. Thank you for submitting that. Listeners, if ever you want to submit something to the Hat of Rassilon, please just tweet us, email us, write to us, send a carrier pigeon. Always very happy to hear new topics, especially as we're up to 44 now. So always keen for new topics. Rob, it's my turn to go first. You ready to go?
I'm ready, Dave.
I think this could be a low snap one, but we'll see.
Oh, I don't know. There's only so many regenerations you can have.
Oh, actually, no, that'll be a snap. That'll be a snap. Right. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Now, before I get going, not to preempt the discussion, but I just want to say I have made very clear in my mind when making these selections that this is very abstract and hypothetical. So, for example, I haven't got the Sontaran experiment on there, but if I'm putting the Sontaran experiment, I'm not saying, oh, well, we're not going to get another 38 Tom Baker stories and I'm erasing 6.5 years of Tom Baker. No. It's not about that. It's just, this would be a fun experiment. So,
exactly.
Parallel universes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Number 5 is a very conventional one. It's one that I really genuinely think should have been the regeneration story. It should have been the Tennant regeneration story, and that is Journey's End.
Okay.
I can remember watching this when it was first broadcast and just going, this is it. You've assembled everything from not just the 10th Doctor's era, but the whole of the RTD era. You've got all of his companions and his friends and the recurring characters flying the Earth back, cheering. The band plays. The field's a field, and you just go, this is the end of an era. This is the big full stop that we should have had at the end of Tennant's era. It would have been a perfect finish. It means we wouldn't have got a bunch of specials of dubious quality. It would have just been a nice full stop. So a very genuine one there. I think Journey's End should have been the regen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Number 4, I'm going to say Earthshock. This is a story that builds to a big conclusion. The conclusion is that a companion dies. Adric is, of course, killed trying but failing to save the Earth. Imagine if the Doctor had died saving Adric. I think that is a story that you could absolutely see being a regeneration story. It is a story where the stakes are big. You've got an army of Cybermen, you've got the future of Earth at stake, companions' lives properly at risk, and I think some of the best regeneration stories are the ones where the Doctor loses control of what's going on, and only by the ultimate sacrifice of his life can he get control again and take over. And I think Earthshock is absolutely that type of story that builds and builds and builds to a big crescendo. And I think had the Doctor's regeneration come at the end of that build-up, it would have felt absolutely right and appropriate.
Okay.
Number 3, I'm going to say The Deadly Assassin.
Yeah.
And that's just because it's such a different type of story that is in part epic. The Doctor goes back to his home planet of Gallifrey and has to save Gallifrey and the Time Lords, this mythical society that tries to give the impression of being godlike. It's epic in that sense, but it's also incredibly personal. It's the Doctor stripped away from his companions, even stripped away from his costume for the most part, stripped down to the fundamental, almost helpless nature of him for a while in that story. And I think that a balance of epic and personal is exactly right for a regeneration story. It is the big confrontation of the Fourth Doctor and the Master, which also to me says regeneration could happen. And there's something about the idea of the Doctor regenerating on Gallifrey, or perhaps even regenerating, saving Gallifrey, that I think would be very different and very interesting and possibly very poetic. So I think The Deadly Assassin is a very interesting one that I could see working very well.
Very good.
Number 2, I'm saying the Daleks' Master Plan. This is another example of just those big epic stories that if a regeneration came at the end of it, you'd go, yeah, that makes sense. And let's face it, the Doctor is pushed right to the extremes after 12 episodes of fighting the Daleks. The Hartnell Dalek stories building up really over 3 years to the final ending of the 12-part Daleks Master Plan, where the planet Kemble is being destroyed by the Time Destructor and the Daleks are pursuing it. This is as big as the heart in a lyra gets. The Doctor is dying. He's out there. His companion has died. Sarah Kingdom has died. The planet is dying. The Doctor is dying. And had the regeneration come at that moment, it would just have made a whole lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Number one, we are at what I suspect our audience will consider to be the pick that certainly they knew I was going at. I think, Rob, maybe you have gone at as well. Mm-hmm. This is a genuine practical pick, and that is The Doctor Falls. We've had this conversation many times over the years, Rob, going right back to when The Doctor Falls actually aired, and we both said that moment when Capaldi has fought the Cybermen, sacrificed himself to save a society of people he doesn't know. And what's more Doctorish than the Doctor giving up his regeneration to save people he doesn't even know. Just a whole society he's got nothing to do with. And the moment where Capaldi looks up and says, I wish there'd been stars. Look, I'm not somebody who talks about, every Doctor Who, I broke down, I had tears, But that was a moment in Doctor Who where I did get a lump in my throat and thought, how beautiful is that moment, and how wonderful that a big, brash, bombastic Doctor like Capaldi is once again just sort of stripped of all of that character and personality. His friends have gone, he's left alone, and he just looks up and just there's this very quiet moment, a very vulnerable moment. And that's perfect for regeneration. Like the start of my list at number 5, number 1 is a story I genuinely think should have been the regeneration. The other 3 are abstracts. I've got one that almost made the list, but first of all, Rob, would you make your list, please?
I will, Dave, and I'll say 0 snaps.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Awesome.
That's already got you thinking, hasn't it?
Well, you only got another 300 odd stories to choose from. So, well, minus the 10 or 11 or 12 that are regens, I guess we couldn't pick those unless you've done something very fiendishly clever, Rob.
Well, let's see. In at number 5, Colin got such an awful bloody send off, and I know Big Finish has sought to redress that, but if we're just thinking on television, then the much talked about alternate ending to Trial of a Time Lord was a good place to do it, I think. Colin doing something heroic rather than banging his head on the console or the exercise bike or whatever it was would have been keeping in with the man he'd become, and of course been a much more exciting conclusion to the era. So tumbling through the Matrix with the Valiard, Dave, and maybe the deeper you go into the Matrix, maybe the worse it is for your physical body sitting outside the Matrix, or your sanity or something like that. But, the Doctor doesn't care. He's going to drown this other bugger in the Matrix, even if it kills him. Something along those lines. And when he gets back to his body, if he gets back to his body, he's just too ravaged to go on and has to regenerate. I think that was probably a good place to do it for Colin, just to have a better ending.
So you're saying number 5 is Trial of a Time Lord, or number 5 is a mythical story that should have followed Trial of a Time Lord?
Well, I'm saying it's the Trial of a Time Lord that we almost got, because that's certainly the ending of it, with him and the Valiard tumbling through the Matrix, but I'm throwing in an added regeneration as a result of that tumbling through the Matrix.
With you, understood.
In at number 4, Capaldi got such an awful send-off, and yes, Dave, we have spoken many, many, many times on the podcast about I thought there'd be stars. It's almost a Doctor Who show cliche, so I know that's perfect, but if I was pushed for another alternate ending, I think something like Heaven Sent, where there's the conceit that he's dying over and over, which is interesting. But what if to really escape, he has to really die to break the cycle, not just punch out a crystal wall bit by bit by bit. And he realizes that and goes through with it. And somehow his body is revived, yanked out of the confession dial. Maybe the Time Lords are involved, something along those lines. I think that could have been a great regeneration story, from the angle that just as we'd never had that kind of solo story, we'd never had a solo regeneration story either. So it's interesting that you were going Deadly Assassin, because that could have been almost a solo sort of moment for him. I think this could have had legs. So I'm going for an alternate version of Heaven Sent.
Nice.
Yeah. And I guess all of these are alternate versions in a way, if we're shoehorning regenerations into stories that didn't have them.
Yeah, parallel universes.
That's right. In at number 3, Matt Smith got such an awful send-off. I mean, what was it? He gave up wandering the universe and just grew really, really old in a small town. So I'm going to look to Nightmare in Silver for this. and specifically the bits where the Doctor has the cybernetics implanted. You can really ratchet up that peril so much, just beyond what we had, which was more of a cutesy, oh, look, he's got a bit of metal on his forehead and he's acting a bit, zany, and make it so he's actually losing his mind and being taken over by the hive mind, and the only way to counter it is to regenerate, and blow away all this artificial stuff that's been inserted in him, because I think a regeneration would do that. I can imagine all the bits of metal falling off as the new body sort of comes into being. Something like that. I think there's a lot of bravery in that kind of regeneration. It's almost to me like having a zombie virus in a zombie film and popping yourself before you can endanger your pals. There's no way out. It's real selfless stuff. I think that could have been a much more cracking story than what we got. I've just got old. Great, thanks. In at number 2, Jodie Whittaker didn't have a completely awful send-off, and much like Matt Smith, she got some great final lines, which I look back on now, the blossomiest blossom and all of that, and I think, that's actually quite neat, and tag Dr. You're it. So that's fine, but what led up to it was a bit pants, Dave. It started off well. The forced regeneration, and then getting tips from all the old doctors on how to reverse it, and then she harnessed the Cybermaster's regenerations to reverse it. Okay, fine. But then she just gets zapped by the Master. Zap, and she has to regenerate. It seemed a bit basic in the end, like Chibnall had done his big idea stuff, and now he just needed, I need something else to start the regeneration. I'll just have the Master Zapper. So I would actually stick with the existing story, but have the toll of her getting back to being herself is what was too much for her body, harnessing all that power from the Cybermasters. And she goes for that reason, not just because of a little zap from the Master after the fact. I thought that felt tacked on and not quite right. So the answer was almost there in the power of the Doctor. It just didn't happen right for me.
Now I have no idea what your number 1's going to be.
Well, I couldn't resist bringing this one up, Dave. It's the second, or is it the third Tennant Doctor bi-generating? And similar to Jodie, I'm keeping the Doctor in the same story, and I'm keeping the story largely intact. So, we're talking that Toymaker special that we've recently had. But I'd have it so that most of that final fight is just Tennant until he gets impaled on the energy beam, which is just a cracking piece of imagery that really sticks with me to this day, like Tennant just absolutely just impaled on this energy beam. Then to us in the audience, it seems that he dies. And the Toymaker's cock a hoop about this, Dave, and while he's celebrating that he's finally killed the Doctor, he doesn't notice that Ncuti just rises up, looking maybe somewhere between pissed off and a bit devious. And when he does notice, he's so rattled that whatever game Ncuti then plays with him, and let's hope it's better than catch, Ncuti wins the day. And in one move, we erase bi-generation, and we also have Ncuti stand up quite literally on his own and be the Doctor from the start. So I would have tweaked that regeneration there, I think. And that's my list.
I'm just going to take a moment to take all that in, Rob. I like your list a lot better than mine. Let's talk about it.
Oh, really?
Well, you've taken that in some weird and wonderful and different ways, and I really like that. I'll say first of all, I did have as my runner up the Ultimate Foe.
Okay.
Again, in a very practical sort of way, that it's a shame that it wasn't a regeneration story and Colin didn't get to go out. And you've taken that in a slightly different direction and said they should have done a different ending and all the rest of it. But I think we both came from the same spot that Colin deserved a regeneration. So
absolutely.
So we'll get that point out of the way. Absolutely, Colin deserved to have a proper regeneration, and how you do it is an open question. I liked the Nightmare in Silver idea, Robin. When you started talking, I was actually thrown back to Asmail in the Twin Dilemma. That idea that something is inside your mind and is taking over your personality, and the only way that you can get rid of it is to regenerate and purge yourself. I think that's a really interesting and clever idea, and I think that it would have been very cool.
Yeah, and I think wasn't the proposed regeneration story for Sylvester, if he got a regeneration, was because he was going mad and he was going to regenerate as a result of madness too. I seem to have that in my head.
Oh, I don't think I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think something I did that maybe you didn't do was go into how these regenerations would happen. For example, you mentioned in Earthshock saving Adric. But how would he save Adric, and what causes the regeneration? Is he getting shot by a Cyberman, or I don't know, does he have to go outside the spaceship without any protection and, it ravages his body? I'm spitballing now, Dave, So maybe I took that extra step, but I was interested in that Earthshock example. I was thinking, what if he tries to save Adric and it causes the regeneration, but he doesn't save Adric, so Adric dies and the Doctor regenerates? How about that?
Wow.
Or is that just me being a bit too over the top?
I think that's a fantastic idea that you could never have got away with in 1982 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's face it, the show at the time didn't even deal with Adric's death.
No.
There wasn't even an opening of time flight sort of, around a grave on a planet, everyone just going, well, we'll remember Adric and, well, we need to carry on. There wasn't even that, let alone the idea of, the Doctor regenerating and saying, did it work? Did I save Adric? No. Let's deal with the implications of that. There's no way they would have done that. But no, that's a really cool idea. I do like it.
Oh, thank you.
Something that you touched on as well is the whole Matt Smith regeneration and just, I think, that really missed opportunity. This idea that we could have had a Doctor who knew he had no more regeneration. So for 3 series, we've got that thing of the Doctor, always being able to in the past say, well, it doesn't matter, worst case that happens, I regenerate, and does it change the Doctor if he knows he can't do that? Instead, we just sort of got to the very end of his series and sort of not even, it was even like the last 20 minutes of his last story, just, oh yeah, by the way, I've used up my regeneration, this is it, guys. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's like Moffat had suddenly done the math and thought, oh, there was that other Tennant regeneration, wasn't there? So, he's actually at the end here.
For seemingly bizarre and indifferent reasons. Yeah, so that's interesting. Rob, you didn't have the Dr. Falls. I would have put £10 on that.
Well, I acknowledged it, and I believe it was the perfect ending, but I do think it has become almost cliche that we do talk about it so much. I just thought, oh, bugger it, I'm going to do an alternate ending to this.
Cliche doesn't mean wrong, though.
No, it doesn't. No, not at all. No.
No, it's good when we throw each other, and you definitely threw me by not having that one. So that's really cool. What did you think of Journey's End? Because that was my other real one that I actually, all the other ones, like, I'm not saying that by putting the regen in Earthshock I want to erase the 20th and 21st season of Doctor Who or Davo's Doctor, not at all. But Journey's End, like the Doctor Falls, I am saying I want to put the regeneration here and get rid of what came afterwards. How do you feel about the end of Tennant? The first time, not the second time or the third time.
Well, look, I remember seeing it the first time and not knowing what was coming or even a hint of what was coming. So when he got zapped and goes down, I was like, oh man, okay. But would that be how it plays out? Or do you still want that ending where everyone's around the TARDIS console flying it? In which case, I'd imagine the Doctor has regenerated and they're doing that with the new Doctor. Is that how that would work? Or what would the timeline be in the story?
Look, I think it would have been an amazing move if they could have avoided spoilers to regenerate the Doctor completely unexpectedly mid-story. That would be an amazing move that I think we'd all be talking about as one of the great moments in the show. So that could definitely work. Or you do go down you go down that Capaldi route of the zap has got him, but he's holding on. He's holding on. And maybe in that last episode, The Journey's End, if Tennant does survive, but he's just holding on. Like Davo in part 4 of Caves of Androzani, where that whole episode, he's just holding on. He's just stopping himself from regenerating until he can complete his mission. I think I'll probably do it that way, just because, like, practically there's no way they could ever have just... like imagine if the first time the Doctor was announced was when you saw the regeneration. I mean, that would be fantastic drama, but absolutely bonkers media management.
Yeah, so we're having that shot around the console. It's almost from the Doctor's point of view. And then he says, I've got one last surprise, everybody. Bam.
Yeah.
And he regenerates in front of them.
Yeah, look, a lot of cool ways to do it. Some very different lists this time, Rob. We really took that in quite different directions. I like that. So thank you again to Peter and Blaine for sending that in. And again, if you have nominations, please do send them in. But it's time to pick our next one. Our final list makers for 2024 is going to be top 5 female baddies.
Oh, great. Great.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun, but we've definitely gone our full allocation. I've been Dave.
I've been Rob.
And we'll make some more lists next month.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.